Hi, everybody. Glad you could join us today. How is everybody doing? My
Well,
name is Lisa Masiag. I'm a
good.
holistic nutritionist, and today, with a number of my friends and colleagues, we're talking about belly fat and how to bust some of those extra pounds and inches that sometimes can kind of get in the way of feeling good and closing up our jeans or bending over, tying up our shoes or doing the things that we like to do, kind of go, hey, what's this? So is anybody here in this lovely staycation that we're having been into any extra baking or like a little extra indulging to get us through? I know. Very true. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
And so we're going to be talking, just about the reality of many different aspects in um, how we tend to store fat and the different types of fat that can get stored around our midsection. And they're actually the more concerning unhealthy fats. So it's not just, because we want to have, slip into those skinny jeans or feel great in that dress or, get ready for summer and, feel good in our summer clothes or whatever the cases may be outwardly that we might attach ourselves to. Hopefully it's more so in really just being healthy and feeling great at every age, and the fact is that we age every single day and we change as time goes by, and so does our body, but also it's also very affected by our environment, the things we put in our body, the things we choose to put in our body, how our bodies react, all the different times in our lives, things change, our hormones, all of that. So we're going to be speaking, about those shifts and changes, the important things to be able to do to help with keeping that more that dangerous fat around our midsection at bay to keep our healthiest selves, to really feel good and to care for ourselves, our immune system and all of that, all our organs and how they function, all are related to that overall sense of being empowered by being able to take care of yourself, and some good aspects of the choices that we get to make, and some things that are just part of aging, but what we can do in a positive way to support that and be good about it and feel good about it. So Joanne's going to talk a little bit about, a couple things in sleep issues, things that we choose to eat, things that are good not to eat. We want to reduce things like your sugar, your alcohol, those kind of things, caffeine, things like that can start changing and shifting our blood sugar levels and how our bodies respond to holding fat, all these different things we're going to be talking about today. So Joanne, if you'd like to start us off, that'd be
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. Thanks, Lisa. So I'm Joanne Mulhall. I'm a certified nutritionist, iridologist, and Reiki practitioner, and I'm in Sechelt, BC, on the beautiful Sunshine Coast. And I've been practicing for 23 years. And as much as Lisa and I were just having a conversation with another practitioner earlier this morning, and as much as I'm a practitioner, I'm a student of holistic health as well for life. So we love to educate, but we learn all the time. Like, I don't think I ever get enough of the learning environment. And so, what's fascinating to me about the human body is I feel like I'm my own best experiment. I think we all feel that way because we are going through life, and we are, as Lisa said, our bodies are changing. We're aging every single day. So when we get to a certain point where we feel like something's not right. Our metabolism is just not responding the way that it used to, or we're stuck. And of course, I'll just talk for women in particular with perimenopause and menopause. We absolutely get to a point where hormonally things are shifting. And that's when we tend to experience this belly fat that sometimes we think just, oh my God, where did this come from? It just showed up. But I think if we were to break it down realistically, and I know with Lori and Jen, we're going to touch on some really key points, and hopefully we can still have just a nice overall discussion about it. And then you guys, if you have questions at the end, to go, oh, well, okay, maybe it didn't just show up. Maybe there were some contributing factors. And so we want to kind of nail what those might be. But let's talk about what visceral fat is, or what belly fat is. So belly fat is really that it's not just the subcutaneous or skin fat that we find. It's also visceral fat. And visceral fat is that fat of layer around our organs, all our vital organs that are in our abdominal area. This is where most of them are, as the key functioning areas of our body, right? Our stomach, our liver, our pancreas, and our bowels, our stomach. So these key organs are all in close proximity, and they have a layer of fat around each of them that are protective. That's why we have ligaments. That's why we have, extra tissue there to keep everything in place. That visceral fat in a proper amount is protective. It also regulates temperature. It insulates. So it has a very specific role when it's there in the right amount. And, again, as amazing as the body is, when things go off balance or things go out of whack, it shows up in different ways in our body. So we know that when, especially as we're aging, this changes. And we notice the visceral fat more because it really becomes it's that dense fat. It's typically called an abdominal apron. It's like that lead apron that you wear at the dentist's office, except it only goes from here to here. And it just sits there, and it feels heavy. It feels dense. It doesn't feel like it wants to move. There's not even sometimes any jiggle to it, except maybe the little muffin top part. But the abdominal apron it has a lot of density to it. And that really is that increase in the visceral fat, as well as the subcutaneous fat together, that is creating that. And, so when we know scientifically from a couple of studies that have been done in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, as well as one journal called for diabetes, that visceral fat reduces muscle growth, and it also causes a state of muscle wasting. And Lori's going to touch a little bit more on this, but they know scientifically where they thought maybe in certain respects it was actually increasing. Old scientific thinking used to be that it actually helped to increase. They now know empirically that the opposite is true, that it's contributing to muscle wasting. It's contributing to a decline in muscle growth, which of course, as we age, even becomes more important. We want to, this is why we tend to shrink a little bit as we get older, because, everything starts to contract and we don't have our skeletal structure as strong as we used to. Visceral fat also results in an increase in inflammation and cell dysfunction. It also ends up affecting liver function and how we metabolize sugar. So we get into insulin resistance. And if we get into that, which is often tagged as actual insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome, that affects not only our blood sugar levels, but how nutrient delivery happens at the cellular level, and also how waste material comes out at the cellular level. And another nasty culprit of belly fat that is a contributing factor is cortisol levels. And Jen's going to touch on that, about cortisol and the stress mechanism. But we know that, again, that cycle that I just mentioned of blood sugar dysregulation and insulin, having this insulin resistance also contributes to fat storage. And then, of course, for the beautiful stage, third act of, I call it the wise woman goddess age, but we do have to go through those hormonal fluctuations to get there, i.e. we stop menstruating, which means our ovaries shut down, our estrogen production decreases. Well, guess where else estrogen is produced in the body? In body fat. So, part of this is a natural transition for women anyway. And we also have a really kind of crazy societal picture that, we're supposed to maintain the body shape that we had if we, had an ideal, what we thought was an ideal one in our 20s or 30s or whatever, or, abs are the thing, or, and that's just so not it, right? Like, it's really just about how do we feel best in our skin. But as Lisa said, and I certainly found that, I'm a fairly tiny person, bone structure wise, and, I've always been a fairly consistent weight. But when I hit that sort of thing last summer and last fall, when I was like bending over and it's like, what is that? There's something in the way there that wasn't there before, and I don't particularly like it. So, but for my own personal experience, I will say before I pass it on to Lori, who's going to get into more about the things that we need, is that I had a very significant couple of months of stress last summer. And I do a lot of things as a holistic nutritionist. We all use tools here that are really key for helping our bodies stay regulated. But clearly I missed the boat on supporting my body well enough. And also my stress levels were high enough that physiologically I was impacted. And I can go back now and kind of break down that sequence of events to see very clearly how I ended up with that extra, 10, 12 pounds, mostly in the waist area and hips, based on some of that stress level that I experienced last summer. So belly fat is a byproduct of many, many things. And I think what we want the message to be here is that it's not a given. We don't have to, accept it as our new reality in terms of, discomfort, especially in this abdominal apron area. But we also have to consider a new set point that our body might be at, given our age, our life circumstance, our activity levels, and our stage of life. So how do we kind of merge this into finding that comfort space? And also the premise for me is always about health. And, we know more and more through studies that are done that belly fat, if we let it get out of control beyond a healthy point, then we're getting into setting ourselves up for unhealthy conditions in other areas, cardiovascular areas, diabetic areas. So that's the key factor here in wanting to mitigate the belly fat in the best way possible, in the healthiest way possible, to support our health in the long term. So how do we actually get to busting this belly fat? So now I'm going to turn it over to Lori, and she's going to talk about a couple of key things that we need to do right at bedtime, which is going to facilitate this process while we sleep.
Thank you so much for that. And the information, my background is kinesiology and health sciences, holistic nutrition. So everything, mind, body, soul about the human body has been a passion of mine since I was very, very young. And what I love, as Joanne mentioned, is that I'm a forever student as well. And even just, having these set series of calls on menopause, I'm reminded of what I know, but I'm also learning so much. And if you are anything like me, if you are, premenopausal, premenopausal or post, you probably grew up in an era where diets were the way you were expected to survive, and diets meaning deprivation, misery, and disaster. And they were only ever meant to make you fit into some magazine image that was completely photoshopped anyways. And we spent our lifetime trying to get externally to this place that had nothing to do with internal health. So now we've got a lifetime of perhaps decades of imbalance in the body because of the way we've treated it. So the long-term effects are largely what cumulatively, little bit by little bit over time, tip us out of balance. And Joanne talked about, and so did Lisa, some of what those out of balances show up as. And what we have an opportunity for now, and I think what is wonderful with this staycation we're on, is that I really truly believe that the days of diet companies are done, because people are realizing that they were useless to start with and we're all doing just fine without them. The days of trying to fit into some external image matters not. And, you know, really, like what we used to do in terms of wearing certain labels or brands or dressing a certain way to go to a certain place to be seen a certain way, all of us are living in our workout clothes and pajamas all day long. Like it has been a beautiful gift of freedom to show up as we are. And as women, to be able to let go of that consumptive expectation is liberating in and of itself. So now let's do the real work. And the real work is, let's go deep down inside and focus on our organ health, our beautiful forever home that is the only place we ever get to live. And let's renovate it the right way. Let's not just do the superficial crap like a coat of paint does. Let's actually go in and repair the hole in the drywall that was there. And when you look at the role of sleep and what sleep can do for repair, which Jen's going to get more into, like the sleep cycle, but what I want to do is focus on the conversation. You know, how many times have we been taught, and when I say we, I speak of me, always I speak of me, I include myself in all of this conversation. I was taught that you had to stop eating immediately after dinner and nothing at bedtime, nothing. And of course, for me often, especially if I was working out in the evening, which was very often the case, or working in the evening as a teacher for 25 years, I did a lot of work in the evening, I needed nourishment. And I would often grab the wrong kind. I would grab a piece of fruit, which is pure sugar. So one of the things that's so powerful to realize is that when we put protein into our bodies right before we go to bed, we give our body a gift of a tool so it can actually do something fantastic while we are sleeping. And the key with this is that we choose the right protein. So if you're thinking, oh, great, bacon and eggs before bed, my favorite thing, that juicy, delicious steak that I love, or mountains of cheese that I'm just in love with right before bed, you made my day. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Because if we put that kind of protein in our body, our entire sleep cycle is spent in uncomfortable digestion, because it is so challenging for our organs to do anything with that kind of protein. So what we need to choose is an absolute pure protein. We don't need the carbs, we don't need the fats. What we want to do is get our body to get the signal to take advantage of the carbs and the fats that are inside, which is that visceral fat that Joanne was talking about. Let's use that to something purposeful. So what we want is highly absorbable, instantly digestible, simple, plain, pure protein. And we want to include in that greens. And the reason we choose greens, pure greens, is again because greens are the conduit that get protein to where they need to be, which is the muscles, faster. So it is a useful, again, synergistic tool. But again, we need to choose organic, we need to choose pure and clean, and we need to choose the highly absorbable alkaline. Because one of the things with most of your normal protein that you find in your cupboards, or usually in the fridge, when I think of dairy and meats, which are, you know, our proteins and eggs, things like that, they're refrigerated, is that many of them are acidic. And acidity on the body, which Jen's going to talk about, trashes your cortisol. and just increases your stress level. So your body's in freeze up mode. So it's not going to be able to take advantage of the protein. But when you choose, whether it's plant-based or whey-based, it doesn't matter, but you want to be choosing a clean, pure, instantly digestible, absorbable protein source. And again, with organic, clean, pure greens as your conduit, in order to make sure that the alkalinity is there. So it's one less stressor on the body. It's easily digestible and absorbable. So it's one less stressor on the body, and it's not distracting the body. So again, it's one less stressor on the body, so that the body can take that protein and say, oh, you gave us a tool that will allow us to convert lean muscle, allow us to restore our key organs, allow the body to take the visceral fat, use the protein as the energy, and facilitate removing the visceral fat while we are sleeping, because our body is too busy in waking time to do a whole lot. Like when we nourish our body during normal waking hours, we want most of it to be during our busiest time of day, which is before dinner, so that our body can use it just to fuel the activities of the day. The repair work isn't going to happen during daytime hours. The repair work happens when we sleep. And so periodically, you know, if you think of your year in quarters, every 90 days, taking a week to 2 weeks, which is what we're going to talk about on a cyclical basis, to really add extra added protein and intentionally give the body extra tools for added repair work. It's kind of like when you're doing your spring cleaning in your house. You don't have to spring clean your house every week, but you definitely want to be spring cleaning, or I call it seasonal. You want to be doing that deeper work on a seasonal basis. Well, this is our house. So seasonally, we need to do some deeper work. And that's what nighttime protein combined with greens will do. So I'm going to pass it over to Jen, because she's going to talk about how do you get into that proper state to be able to take advantage. Because if you're running in full throttle stress before you hit the pillow, your sleep cycle is spent just going, trying to calm yourself down so when you get up the next morning, you're not freak out mode. And generally it doesn't do that great a job. So there's things you can do to get yourself calm down, so that by the time you ingest that protein and those greens, your body is in a receiving state, and it is in a calm enough state to actually do something. So Jen, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Lori. Yes, my name is Jen Thomas, and I've been a personal trainer and business owner for the past 15 years. And this topic, I love this topic because my clients are typically women over the age of 40. And the biggest thing they come to me with is stubborn belly fat, and I'm not sleeping. So 2 of the questions that I ask right off the top is, how is your stress level and how are you sleeping? Because those 2 things, I mean, you can do a world of exercise, but if you don't get those 2 things under control, you're going to have a really tough time shifting any of that weight. So the first thing I want to tackle is cortisol. So cortisol is it's a wonderful hormone when you need it. It's you know, back in the Stone Age, if it was perfect, if a tiger was chasing you, your cortisol and adrenaline would spike up, so you could divert all that energy to the muscles, that you could run away, you could get away fast, and they would, you know, that you got away from the tiger and it all settled down naturally. Well, in the world we're living in right now, particularly right now, stress levels remain high, and it's just turned our cortisol levels on their head. And actually, if Joanne, if you could put up the visual for us. I'm just going to go, well.
I have the one on the sleep cycle. Did you send me the other one? Because I can quickly.
I did do that one too. Let me see if mine's here.
Hold on.
I've got it, actually. I've got it.
Okay.
So I'll pull it up. So here we go. So what we really would love to see is a normal cortisol curve. So that's the blue one. So in the morning, your cortisol level should be nice and high. It's getting you out of bed, you're refreshed, you're ready to start the day. And as the day goes by, it should slowly settle out and those cortisol levels should go down. Well, unfortunately, with between the stresses that we are faced, whether it's mental stress, oxidative stress, physical stress, we're actually inverted it. So we start out and it's low. So we're dragging our butts out of bed. We're hitting the snooze button 3 or 4 times. And it gradually goes up and the stress goes up as your day goes and that cortisol keeps going up. And then by the time it's time to go to bed, your cortisol is so high that you, A, can't get to sleep, and B, can't stay asleep. So what we want to do is flip that curve back on its head. So I'm going to stop that and come back. So some of the things you can do are finding ways to find that relaxation piece. And I'm going to bring it in together at the end as well in terms of helping with that sleep. Things like meditation, like finding a schedule for yourself before you go to bed. You know, meditation is a really great one. Journaling, a nice hot bath, getting off all of your devices at least an hour before you go to bed. Installing a blue screen. Now most phones, either Android or iPhones, they have a setting that you can actually turn your blue screen on, you know, turn it on at a specific time so that you're not getting, because it interrupts your melatonin, your ability to create melatonin, which is one of those lovely sleep things. Melatonin decreases with age. And melatonin is huge. It's that one piece that helps you get to sleep, but also keeps you asleep. And there's lots of, I'm sure people have heard, you know, if you're traveling, melatonin is a great way to switch you over to the new time zone. Well, it works on a regular basis. It's something that naturally occurs in our body anyway. And a lot of people take melatonin pills or strips, that kind of thing. But the one thing about the pills is they're not terribly absorbable. And anybody who's perimenopausal or menopausal, sleep is a big issue. And so for me, it's called Sleep Support and Renewal. And it's a spray. It's a melatonin spray that you leave in your mouth for about 30 seconds to a minute. And it's so readily absorbable. Like it's a game changer, an absolute game changer. So that's something that we can talk about. I think Joanne's going to finish up with that as we go along. So we've talked about sleep, and we're talking about having a minimum of 7 to 9 hours of deep sleep a day. So if Joanne, do you have that visual? So we start out when we're younger, we need a lot more sleep, like 10 to 12 hours of sleep. But after the age of about 25 and above, we're looking at 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because there's a couple things that happen when you don't get enough sleep. It really messes with there we go. It causes changes to the hormones that regulate our hunger and our appetite. So there's 2 hormones, there's leptin and ghrelin. Leptin suppresses your appetite and encourages your body to expend the energy. And sleep deprivation actually really reduces that leptin. And the other one is ghrelin, the other hormone, and it triggers those feelings of hunger. And as you get short on sleep, that ghrelin goes up. So all of a sudden you're hungry for things you really shouldn't be eating. And it really sort of messes with what you're craving as well. So it creates more intense cravings for fat and sugar-laden foods. Your brain doesn't seem to make reasoned decisions, and it doesn't use its best judgment when those hormones are out of balance. So that's really something to think of. So back to our chart, so you can see as of 26 to 64, maximum recommendation by the National Sleep Foundation is 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And it's funny how people, oh, I've been busy and I only need 6 hours. I only need 5 hours of sleep. Well, you're doing your body a real disservice if you're only getting that much, because belly fat loves a sleep deprived body. It's not, the metabolism is not going through its proper rhythm. And so it's going to accumulate. You're not going to burn that off. So that's one of the first questions I always ask. Next thing I want to talk about is exercise and the type of exercise that you're doing, because we all know that muscle burns more calories than fat. In fact, it's 2.5 times more calories muscle than fat in a resting body state. So the more lean muscle you have, the better off you are. But the challenge we face as we get older, particularly women, is we're losing that muscle. In fact, it's at a rate of 10% each decade. So aerobic exercise is fantastic. It does help lowering that cortisol level and that adrenaline. But your master powerhouse is the more lean muscle you can create, the better off you are. So I'm talking about resistance training. I'm talking about free weights. I'm talking about anything that machines are great, but it keeps you in one sort of parallel line of movement. Whereas when you're using free weights, things like that, it's actually forcing those little proprioceptors that control your balance and your core stability to fire. And it's more like activities of daily living. It's more functional training. And it allows you to, so if you're down picking up laundry, if that's one of the things, then, doing full body squats, things that are going to mimic what you do in life are the most powerful that you can be doing. And and I think really that's where I wanted to leave it, but just to really find a routine that works for you to help increase that lean muscle, increase that better sleep, and like some of the strategies I talked about. So the meditation, gratitude journaling, screen time, that kind of thing is just absolutely key to help modulate some of those hormones. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Joanne, because I think she's going to go over what you also can do, the product that we're going to be doing this week coming up. So Joanne?
Thanks, Jen. Actually, I'm going to call back on Lisa just for a couple minutes, because we wanted to touch on a little bit about how fat tissue holds on to toxins. And so I remember Lisa was going to touch at the beginning, so I'm just going to throw it back to you for a few seconds so you can elaborate on that piece as well, because we all have done detoxing and cleansing, and some of our guests on the call probably have done it, and those listening in may be curious about what that is. So if you can just elaborate why that is such a key piece, in addition to this nighttime fat burning and how that can benefit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely, Joanne. And I guess I'm a huge proponent of healthy cellular detoxing to really help escort all these impurities that we're all exposed to in our environment, in our food, in our products, in our home, and so much. We all don't live in a bubble, as we know. So we all need to deal with them. And it seems, every decade we're dealing with more and more of them. So, from plastics and our food industry, and again, things in our home, our cleaning products, personal care products, just the air that we breathe. Thank goodness right now the air seems to be a little bit better without all the planes and all the transportation, so that's kind of good. However, it gets stored, when the body doesn't recognize these toxins and impurities. It doesn't know how to break them down, what to do with them. So its intelligence, so it doesn't damage us, goes, don't know what to do with this, can't break it down, foreign object, foreign substance, it's going into storage. So it can't harm us. And that's where things get stored a lot, is in our fat tissue, amongst other parts of our body too, brain, joints, organs, so on and so forth. So assisting ourselves with these regular intermittent fasting, whether it's 1 day, 2 day, nutritional cleansing is my preferred method, which is amazing because it supports the body in helping these impurities get escorted out properly with the right intention, versus just stirring it up and then it getting restored somewhere else to do damage. So, those are different types of detoxes that, many people, whether it's a water fast, master class, so many different detoxes out there. So when you really do a well-supported one, That's where the magic happens. It starts increasing your own human growth hormone, which starts declining as we age too. So that's really beautiful as well, where it becomes more of a better metabolism to start, eating up all those impurities, burning fat, all the different mechanisms that our bodies are so beautifully designed to do. It's just helping us get out of our own way, and a lot of those ways we can't help because it does come from our environment. So that nutritional cleansing is a big piece. And keeping that liver, and it's all really happening in the liver, all those, 700 plus processes, that master gland of ours. We want to love that liver so much, and it does a lot of work for us, so we just need to give it some help. So
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm just going to share then quickly. So we're at the conclusion of this call, we'll take a few questions, but part of this is to invite you to join us starting next Wednesday for our Bedtime Belly Buster group support that we're doing. It is going to be over an 11-day program, 11-day time frame. And I'm just going to share here, these are the tools that all of us talking on the call today have used for, up to 15 years. I've been using these tools in my toolbox for 15 years. Actually, yeah, 15 years. So some of us, 8, 9, and 10. And, there's a beautiful array of natural products out there in the marketplace. And quality, consistency, just feeling confident in knowing how a product works and the visual benefits that you can get from a product. This is why we work with Isogenics and the programs that the company offers, the products that the company offers. So with this Bedtime Belly Buster, what we are using is a clean pre-digested protein, as Lori talked about. There's a couple of varieties of that. There's a dairy-free version, a whey version, or a combination version called a try-release blend, which has 3 different types of proteins in it for digestibility and assimilation, because the body does uptake different proteins at different cycles in the integration process in the body. We also talked about using a beautiful greens. Lori touched on that and why it's so important to work with the plant or whey-based protein to create that alkalinity in the body. And of course, as Jen was saying about sleep time, that is our time when the cortisol levels should be coming down and we're into rest and repair mode. So it makes sense that when our body is repairing, that we get those beautiful amino acids, which are, so crucial for so many repair processes. Makes sense that we would take some in at bedtime when the body is ready, as Lori said, to receive it. There is an option to use the fruit product, or some people like to use a bit of both. These are all amazing dehydrated fruits with super high antioxidant values and a high ORAC value. And then the sort of pièce de résistance is the sleep spray, which has that melatonin base. And of course, that's what's going to support that extra ability for your body to get into that deep restful state. Michael Colgan is a professor of nutrition. He's a research scientist. He lives in West Vancouver, used to live on beautiful Salt Spring Island on an enormously organic farm. I think they still have the farm, but he lives now most of the time with his wife in West Vancouver. And such a brilliant man, such a brilliant scientist, has extensively written about brain health and melatonin and all the important neuro nutrients that we need. And melatonin is absolutely one of them to help regulate that. So we invite you to join us next Wednesday. This kind of adds on to our 2-week reset, which we're just completing this Friday. We know with the circumstances of the situation, he who shall not be named, I really don't even like saying the word COVID anymore. I'm kind of done with that. Delivery times on product is a little bit slower than normal. So we are inviting people to join for next Wednesday. So for anyone listening to this call, they still have a little bit of time to maybe put in an order, either a brand new order as a new customer, touch base with whoever invited you to this call, or add on to your existing product use. And we'll be implementing this starting next Wednesday. We have our Love Your Body Facebook group, which we're all posting and adding in material there on a fairly regular basis, well, daily. So, and once we ramp this up, we'll be putting in some awesome other tips to support you in this process. Lisa touched on the cleanse and detox piece, which of course is the beautiful botanical liquid that is called Cleanse for Life. Has those wonderful herbs to facilitate that extra detoxing and doing the liver support. And also with the stress and the cortisol piece, we have our beautiful adaptogenic blend with B vitamins in the form of our Ionic Supreme. So definitely you can add those 2 products in while you're doing this, if it's something you haven't been implementing up until this point. So I'd love to just open it up. I'll stop the screen share, and you know, if there was any questions from our beautiful guests today on the call. Question, comment, anything at all? Oh, just have to unmute yourself there, Shannon. I can do that.
And then A. Oh, thank you.
There we go.
I don't know how to do it. So all of those products will help raise your cortisol level for the morning too. Is that kind of what you're? Because that's the optimal, right? You want to have a high cortisol level to have that. You want to be, yeah. Because I just find myself sluggish in the morning.
Right, and that's a great comment. It's not going to help raise your. It's a rebalancing, right? So if your cortisol levels can naturally come down at bedtime and while you're sleeping, then they should be naturally then coming up as your body rebalances to get into its normal, what we call circadian rhythm. It should be then naturally coming up. So in the morning, and I totally get where you're at. And again, look at this sleep piece. You guys can unmute and just jump in with whatever you think, but really look at your sleep piece. Because I think, as Lori pointed out, a lot of us deprive ourselves of that extra needed sleep. And especially when, you know, like no 2 days are the same, right? Like there are some days when I will go to bed at 9 o'clock and I will sleep till 7 or 8. And like, I'm just like needing those extra hours on certain days, you know? And even though I'm not menstruating right now, I still feel like I have. And we just have that natural cycle to our body when our hormones are still fluctuating, and we'll find days when we need that extra sleep. So really start to pay attention to that, Shannon. I think that might be a bit of a key piece for you.
Well, I can add to that too, because I've been struggling with sleep, especially through this staycation, and something that Lisa actually has recommended to me several times over the years is to add one of our products in the Ionic Supreme at bedtime. And I just happened to be on another call last week, and again, another nutritionist mentioned it, and I thought maybe I should really try that, but I was always nervous too, because it is a product, Ionics is a product that does also help to give you energy. Not the kind of flighty energy, but just gives you a nice even energy throughout the day. So it's something that I've used during the day, usually 2 to 3 times a day, because it buffers stress in the body. And so I usually do quite extensive workouts in the morning. So I always have it first time when I get up, then I have it right after my workout to manage that stress. And then I usually have it mid-afternoon when your cortisol levels spike. So I was afraid to take it a 4th time because for me in my head, it was always about energy. But I've been doing it for about a week now, and I've been sleeping amazing. So it really has, I just had 1 night, 2 nights ago where I didn't sleep as well, but again, last night I slept really well, and I had my 1 ounce at bedtime. And so I really feel that it's definitely helping my body adapt better to the stress, I guess, that my body's going through during the night.
Yeah, that's excellent, Cheryl. And yeah, because it is a balancing tonic. And I think there is a bit of a misconception about the energy piece, because it is a good grounded, balanced energy, right? And that's why typically you would take it in the morning to help kind of give you that. And of course, there's B vitamins in it, and vitamin C, and there's ginger, which is, kind of gets the gut fire happening. Like, I love the liquid because I feel that little, like I just feel like that little surge when I take it in the morning, and it's like a blood warming kind of thing. It's not like a burst like from coffee.
Yes.
So, but absolutely. And if you have a husband that snores, bedtime, baby, take the ionics at bedtime. Those adaptogens and all those minerals at bedtime, because a lot of times it has to do with, just like diaphragmatic issues and all kinds of things. It's definitely a plus or if you snore.
So a quick point, maybe you can just mention, there were a couple other products for anybody that's in our Love Your Body group, or anybody that would like to join it to receive all kinds of great health tips. There are some other products that we mentioned there that can be added to the bedtime belly buster, such as your omega-3s, your magnesium at night, and the purpose of them, and then of course the balanced vitamins and minerals as well. So those are also, they're not musts, but there's so many benefits to adding them on a daily basis as well. But they're really great and helpful.
Yeah, great point. So if you are already using the IsoComfort product, which is the magnesium, as well as the other intestinal herbs, great one to continue with for sure. And actually, Michael Colgan's protocol for fat burning is with the omegas. And Lori, I know you know his stuff really well as well. That to take extra omegas morning, but also you can take them at bedtime as well. Kickstart.
Yep.
And I think another good piece too, especially during the staycation, is I think a lot of our sleep schedules, like one night we're staying up and watching a movie till 1, and then the next day, I'm tired, so we go to bed at 10. So I think to try to go to bed at the same time, the same window, and get up in the morning at the same time, that's going to also help to modulate that as well, in addition to all this kind of stuff too.
Great point. Super important, because I know a couple of weeks ago, Guy and I were talking about, okay, like enough already. Like, we're just being really kind of whatever flow. And so, now that it's beautiful out and it's light early in the morning, and luckily we have a great big window with lots of light coming in. And so we set our alarm for 6 o'clock. And, one of us rolls out of bed, and that's when we put on our meditation, roll back into bed. And, that's honestly, that's our sort of wake up time. And we're, he's a bit of a late night hawk. I like to be in bed by 10 o'clock. He can push it to midnight. But I've been telling him lately, I think you're depriving yourself a little bit. I think
get yourself to sleep.
You need to switch it up a bit, because if we're waking up at 6 and we're not getting up, but we're, kind of starting to come to life at 6, that's at 10 o'clock, that's 8 hours. So that, for me, that's kind of a minimum. But yeah, you're totally right, Jen. I think because we're not on a work night or a school night, we tend to push it sometimes if we're up watching a movie or doing whatever, and shortchanging ourselves for sure.
Yeah, and then you try to watch that movie and then try to go to sleep when you're all stimulated, and it doesn't work so well. It's hard to leave another hour after you've watched a movie till 1 to go to sleep. So it's just something to keep in mind, because to get that rhythm back, you have to set yourself a schedule. So,
or turn off the late night news too.
I would say turn off all the
everything
news all the time. And I think that's something that when we talk about stress, we need extra sleep time. So Jen, when you were talking about 7 to 9 hours as the average, given the current staycation, there's this constant underbelly of stress that is moving through the energy of the environment. And no matter how much you're doing for yourself, all of us are feeling, whether we're aware of it or not, we're feeling the extra hit of this tension energy from the many, many, many people who are really struggling because they don't have a toolbox of tools and they didn't get anything before this was happening. So they're really, really struggling. We're feeling it. The hit to our cortisol means that many times, and I know I've had this, where I'll go a week of needing 9 to 10 hours of sleep, and then a week where the normal, like 8.5, 9 is working fine. And so understanding that your minimum is now that, let's say 8 to 9 hours, and adding on is when you listen to your body. If your body's tired, then go to bed earlier, sleep later. Or if your body's tired, have that restorative nap in the afternoon. The art of napping is absolutely brilliant because it allows the body to deal with this added tension. It's invisible, but it's energetic and it's hitting us. And now that we're into week 8 or week 9 or week 10, whatever it is, the cumulative effects are really starting to be felt mentally and physically. So honoring the sleep cycle and making sure we get into that deep restorative sleep, not that, like you say, Jen, watch a movie and be frazzled, or stay up late doing, screen time in bed right before you turn out the lights, doesn't invite the opportunity for your body to restore itself. So it's such a free thing to do. It's so priceless and we're so not used to it. So this bedtime belly buster is as much an opportunity, I think, to get us into a better sleep habit, as much as burning belly fat, because hey, who doesn't want that? But really to be able to reset the cortisol cycle and shear off some of this added underlying stress that's gooping up inside of us, I think is a big part of the belly buster opportunity that we have to remember as well, and share around with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, we're just a little bit shy of the hour. So thanks everyone for, as always, an amazing group of interaction and commentary, and have a rest of the day is a beautiful, beautiful day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day.
That's great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.